Hi, welcome to the very first episode of my new podcast, Growing Pains. I'm Brenda. What's up? If you're new here, we're just going to talk about adulting and stuff, no big deal. If you can't tell from my accent, I am Singaporean, so a lot of my knowledge and experience is based in a very Singaporean context. And it's important because this week we are talking about how it's been like moving out on my own. If you hear scuttling in the background, it's Noodles. He's my son. He's a dog. I can't really use language to tell him to stop, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. Noodle, stop it. I guess you can use language actually. Ever since I moved out, nearly 2 oh wait. Oh my god. It's been 2 years. I guess because like 2020 is such a weird year and like time has stood still for a lot of us, so I just didn't realize that we're already in August. Okay. So it's been 2 years since I've moved out, and a lot of people have actually found me and my channel through the apartment tour. So that's been a big part of my content and my life as well, obviously, because where I live, right? So I'm going to be covering my personal experience. I know a lot of you guys are asking me if I have like regrets or anything. I'm going to dig deep. Finances, responsibilities, priorities, the reality of it, and more of your questions actually, because I've already asked you guys on Instagram. So to give you a quick recap, if you're not familiar, I moved out in my last semester of school. I was 22 and now I'm 24, so I've been living here for 2 years. This particular home is my first ever apartment that I stay in by myself. Previously, I did live in New York for half a year, and that was like shared with a couple of housemates. And then prior to that, I did stay on campus in a dorm for 2 years on and off, in between breaks and stuff. Obviously I moved back home, but that's sort of my personal history, and I kind of like that I did that because I feel like living in the dorms and then moving to a place with housemates and then moving alone has been more of like an incremental step, because I feel like this personal journey of like living in a dorm, a more communal space, to one with housemates and then finally being on my own has been quite a nice sort of learning curve for me to adapt to and like get ready for. And I do get to experience like the varying levels of like privacy and like community and see what I prefer. And I prefer living by myself. Maybe some people might find that it's like mean because like obviously I did live with my family and like they're lovely people, but I think with what I do I just have to be on my own. Yeah, like 2 years later, dead ass would never move back home. I'm so happy being on my own. I don't know if I would stay in this apartment or I would like move somewhere else, but not home. Sorry, mom. Stop asking me. It's not gonna happen. I do sometimes wonder if I would have saved a little bit more money if I have moved out later, or, if I could have just like lived with someone else, maybe with a friend. I do think about those options sometimes, but I always circle back to the fact that living alone independently has always given me 100% full control of every aspect of my life, including noise. Yes, I did spend a lot of money that I think a lot of other people would deem unnecessary. For the whole span of 2 years, I've spent around $50,000. Yeah, no, sometimes when I think about it, I do find it like 50, like that's a hard pill to swallow. But at the same time, like I really have never regretted it, because I wouldn't be able to work at the capacity that I do now, especially because I work from home. So I do see this as like an office home situation. What I mean by that is like being as free and like creative and flexible with my time as I possibly could, and to produce like videos and content of a better quality in general. So another thing about living alone that I truly enjoy is the fact that I can make very mindful choices about everything that I do. I don't know if you sometimes feel like, okay, everything is just on autopilot. Things are either automated or done for you. You're just kind of like in and out, and you're not really fully taking control of like your space or even your diet sometimes. If like your mom or your helper cooks like, you just eat what's on the table. Obviously, you can buy your own groceries, right? You can buy your own favorite food. But there is just something different about opening the fridge and seeing that everything is for you, like for your consumption. Even when it comes down to the brand of stuff, like I personally really enjoy choosing and trying out different brands of toilet paper. I know that's so lame, but it's really, really fun. For me, everything is in its place, has a purpose. I'm taking ownership of the space and things in the space. And if there's a mess, it's a mess that I made, a mess I'm happy to clean up. You know, I don't have to clean up after anyone else's messes. Moving out has made me grow up in a way that I truly enjoy. Like, it's been a wonderful journey. I feel like I've blossomed into myself. I have the literal space to grow into an adult, and the house is also a reflection of me. So not only do I grow into it, I can kind of look at it and be like, this is how I was like, this is how I am now, these are my bad habits, you know. It's a very nice sort of reflection of your own space, and it's something that I feel proud of like constantly. Another thing is that you can invite all of your friends anytime you want, you know. Obviously not right now, you know, let's be responsible. But anytime you want to invite a friend over, if you have a Tinder date, you just want to like send them upstairs, you know what I mean? It's just like little hurdles that you would feel a little bit awkward about, or a little bit like sneaky in your family home. Like, you can totally bypass that. A lot of people have also asked if I get lonely, if I miss my family. And the very sad truth is no, I don't. I think when I first moved in, like the first night or second night, I did feel a little intimidated by the space, because I was like, ooh. But everything was kind of in boxes, and I think it was very bare. But right now, looking at the entire space, it's filled completely with my things, right? I have a lot of good memories in this space, and even though it's rented, I've rented it for 2 years, and I am the first like renter of like the space. I just signed another lease. I'll be here for 3 years in total. So why would it be my space? I'm very comfortable here. This is home to me. And now I also have Mavis coming over for like half the week, and then Noodles is here with me, keeping me company. Oh my god, getting a dog, best decision made in 2020 or ever. Maybe ever. I would say ever. Actually, let's go with ever for now. I'll let you know if I've made like a better decision. So yeah, I really don't get lonely. And before Mavis and Noodles like came into my life and into my house, I was still not lonely, because I could go and visit my family anytime I wanted to. And it was great because I could go back to my family's house simply to hang out with them and not to do any other work, which is what I kind of felt I was doing in the dorm, where I would like shuffle back and go home during the weekend, but try and film like my videos for the week and then like go back to the dorm and edit. I really didn't like it. I felt like I was very impatient with my family. I felt like I was also under a very like tight schedule to produce all of these things, and I couldn't hang out with them, and I would get upset when they're like noisy and stuff. So yeah, now I just go back to hang out, to eat, to chill, and to talk to them. And my parents noticed that as well. I think a month into me moving out, I went back. You know, I would hang with them like every 2 weeks or so. But she was like, now that you've moved out and you have your own space, right, your mood is like so much lighter, you're so much happier. I was like, yeah, I am. Now I feel like the interaction between me and my family is a lot more intentional, and therefore a lot more sincere. And yeah, me and my mom have gotten a lot closer after moving out, which is very funny. Yeah, that's actually something that I didn't expect at all, because I am quite close to my family. I didn't realize that I would be closer to them if I like moved out. Some people have also asked how to cope with that fear for those who do feel lonely, and I would say maybe living alone isn't for you then. Maybe you can look at the options of living with a flatmate, with your friends, even with your partner, for example. I don't think it's absolutely necessary for you to move out, especially if you don't need to. I know everyone's working from home right now, but if you really think about it, like when life resumes as per normal, when you are in the office almost all day, when you're hanging out with your friends after work, do you really need to rent a space? I'm saying this simply because like rental is really not cheap, especially if you want to rent a whole place by yourself. I think if I wasn't doing the job that I would probably still stay home. I mean, I did move out very, very young at 22. It's young for a Singaporean. So I think I would have considered it maybe if I was like 26, 27, when I'm a little bit more stable in terms of my finances and my income. If you move out, you know, you get such a big cut out of your paycheck every month, and you have to learn how to do your laundry, and you have to like, you know, iron your own clothes, like mop your own floor, assuming that you don't already do that, and like clean your toilets and everything, you know what I mean? Like do your dishes after every single meal. I know a lot of people, my brothers have not done that ever, so I don't think they would enjoy like living alone as much as I would currently. And you guys, oh my god, there's another thing that I have to tell you. You know, you stay in a place for too long, you kind of get the itch, you want to move. I do have like this apartment specific like cons, like there isn't an oven, and I would much rather have an oven. That's actually like the only biggest con that I have. That's how spoiled I am in this house. But I have been looking around for like different places just on the off chance I'll find something that I like even more, because my lease was due. And I kind of did that from like April onwards, and I kind of noticed, you guys, rental prices have gone up 100%. It's gone up like, I would say, a couple $100 like across the board. I think previously I could still find like not bad size like studio apartments for like 1.5, 1.6, but it's really hard to find like something for that amount now. The only things I could find were like 200 square feet, like 3. And my landlord did actually ask to increase rent, so I am paying like a higher rent starting from this month onwards. And not gonna lie, I really think the reason is COVID. And I think maybe now like our generation of like millennials were much more inclined to the idea of renting to sort of move out and have our own space. I think we do realize that there's quite a lot of like constraints in like being seen as a child almost in your family home and not quite growing out of that space. So I think everyone had this like general consensus of like restlessness of being in your family home, especially when you're working from home. Like suddenly everyone's forced to be interacting with the things that they've avoided throughout the day. I don't know if it's someone coming in to clean your room or your parents yelling at you or whatever, you know. It's just a lot of, I feel, maybe noise pressure. That was what I experienced when I was in my family home. And a lot of people are like, fuck it. Because of the increase in demand, I think like across the board, all of the rental prices have like increased quite a lot. So I would say right now, if you really don't need to, like, don't be looking for an apartment because it's gonna be expensive. If you're ever interested in renting, you can check out the couple of sites that I checked out when I was looking to rent, and now that I am window shopping occasionally. I go on 99Co, I go on Property Guru, I also go on Carousel sometimes just for lols, and sometimes, you know, you can just Google, just be like places for rent, and then you can find a couple of other like smaller websites that might have a hidden gem. I also take into context what I like about my current apartment, what I don't like, what I wish I had, and all these like different plans, because I'm constantly thinking about it. So I have it on my notes on my phone, like what I want, a checklist basically, large windows, lots of sunlight, not a ground floor unit, like that kind of thing. Like I'll just write down whatever I want, and then when I am looking at an apartment, instead of getting excited at everything that it is, I want to see like what I expect from my apartment and what it can match up to in terms of my own expectations for my next apartment. So that's what I do. If you need like a starter checklist, you can always Google online and be like what to look out for in an apartment when you're renting, when you're apartment hunting. If you work from home or if your workplace is not in town, I really would suggest you to pick something that's nearer to your workplace, a little bit further from town, because it's a lot cheaper. I would say it's a couple $100 to maybe $1,000 cheaper depending on what you get exactly. So yeah, take your time. Unless you're in like a really big rush to move out, there's no reason to settle on the first apartment that you view. There are not a lot of like bad sides to living alone, because I'm just that kind of person. Like I like to do the chores. I like to feel responsible for my space, but I do have a couple. All right, okay. First things first, Neighbours. I'm going to talk about the Neighbours more with Mavis in a bit. Oh, she's a guest. She's my boo. But the other thing is maintenance. There still is a little bit of a reluctance for me to purchase like big pieces of furniture or fixing these like small little things. So an example I'll give you is like my bidet. I want to change to a different one. I think it'll be cuter, but it works. I mean, the landlord, you know, installed it. Like, do I have to ask for permission? Like, do I take it away with me? Like, if I move out, you know, that kind of thing. So those things serve as a reminder that you don't own the space and that it's not ultimately yours, and you can't truly control like these very minor, I would say, details of the house. Still trying to enjoy the space for what it is. I still think this is a great crib. Like, unless I find an even better deal, I might consider. Because I might consider getting like an unfurnished place and doing it up by myself. But then again, we'll go through the whole like, can I paint the walls? Can I not paint the walls? Like, you know, this and that. So yeah, so that's like just a big downside to renting in general. Home appliances that you never realized you needed or realized were useless. The one that I never realized that I needed was an air fryer. I didn't realize how much I used it when I was at home. I don't know why. And I found that like for the first few months, I was like, why is it so irritating to cook the most basic shit? Like, what did I used to do when I was like cooking sausages? Like, what? Do I always have to like freaking wash my frying pan every single time? Then I was like, oh shit. I had an air fryer and it was way better than a microwave, right? Because it gets your stuff like all crispy and stuff. So I sprung that cash. I got an air fryer and I use it almost daily. Chef's kiss. So great. The appliance that is useless. For the first year I was in here, I was like, I really want a food processor. I really want like a blender. Why can't I have that? And then I got it, and I think I've only used it like twice in the whole year. I'm not a blendy bitch. I'm not. I'm not a food processing bitch. I think I really wanted to make pesto. I've made pesto twice. Those were the 2 times that I used it. How do you deal with cockroaches if you're really afraid of them? LOL. I think I was afraid of it when I was younger, when I was growing up. I think when you're like with your brothers and stuff, you can just yell and ask your brothers to like help you take care of them, or like your dad or whatever, your mom or whatever. As I grew older, I was just like, it's just a pest that needs to be exterminated. I used to use like dictionaries when dictionaries were still around because they're like really chonky, right? And then I would use like tissues or like containers, like, you know, disposable containers that I can just sort of like, I don't know how to explain it, but like you move it and then you like kind of chuck it out of the window so it flies out instead of having to deal with it or kill it or anything. So I'm not really afraid of them. I would say if you're really afraid, you might want to like think twice about moving out. Maybe don't move out alone, you know, like I said, move out with a friend who can deal with cockroaches. Maybe you can write that as like a roommate checklist, or just stay home with someone that will be able to help you like get rid of it, you know? Or just like close your eyes and pretend you don't see it. But I know that doesn't work for me. I need to know exactly where it is at all times. Someone did ask how to get on top of your chores and to be diligent, and I would say like do things as you go. For me, I enjoy a clean, hygienic space. That was actually one of my biggest pet peeves, like being in my family home, because my brothers are notorious for not cleaning up after themselves. They would just leave, like, wherever they eat, you would see their bowls there with like the leftover food and everything, and that always irked me. I hated seeing it, just because like, bro, like, at least put it in the sink. So for me, I found that having like a dedicated chore day doesn't actually work for me, because some days it's just not as dirty and not as messy. I do several things on a daily, like cleaning the counters when I cook, and I guess it helps that I have a pretty good gauge of like what needs cleaning, and when I do clean, I really thoroughly deep clean it. So for example, like the bathroom and stuff, I'm not like a particularly grimy person, I would say. Maybe once every 2 weeks I would do like a light clean, and then once every like 2 months maybe I'll do a deep clean. I'm talking like scrubbing, play some music, you know, feel like I'm exercising. I think that really helps, like feel like you're getting your workout in for the day and just like really going at it, either mopping the floor or like scrubbing towels or clean the sink and stuff like that. My least favorite chores. Oh, I hate laundry. Laundry is just so irritating because you go through the risk of like having color runs on your clothes. It's happened to me a couple of times, stuff shrinking. It's just a disappointment in general, especially when like I have a lot of nice vintage pieces. Like they sort of give me a heart attack, right? And they just take a while in general. You know, you put it in the wash, it's like 1 hour. What the fuck? You take it out, you still gotta dry it. Because I don't have like a balcony space, I do have like a little dryer section in my bathroom. But even then, it sort of like blocks the space. It's not quite as airy as it was before, and it takes like a whole day or two for it to be dry, right? And if I do put it in the dryer, one, I'm afraid my stuff will shrink. Secondly, it's noisy for like 2.5 hours and I gotta like deal with it. That's 6 hours, and in between you have to remember to turn it on again. If you don't turn the dryer on right after you wash it, it's like musky smelling. So then after that, you have to take it out. And you gotta fold that shit, you gotta hang that shit, you gotta, it's just a very tedious thing. The other thing I don't quite like is washing the dishes, because my hands are very sensitive and they get very dry and like it's like itchy and painful at the same time when I use like detergent that's a little too strong. But the one that I'm currently using now, the BioHome one, it seems to be working like really great. My favorite chores, on the other hand, when I absolutely need to do it, I do relish in cleaning my bathroom. I quite enjoy it because you get to enjoy its cleanliness for like a couple of weeks on, you know what I mean? It's not something that you clean and immediately like gets dirty again. I don't see cooking as a chore, but I do like cooking a lot. Oh, I really like decluttering. Decluttering is really fun. But I do have to kind of like set aside the whole day for it. But I like organizing as well. I don't know if y'all remember my original house tour, but my house looks quite different from the house tour now. I don't know if you can see in the video, but my sofa is on the other side and then my TV is on the bench now. And there is quite an addition of new furniture and clutter. yeah, I'm not so happy about the clutter, but I am quite happy about the new furniture. They're pretty great. It's like vintage furniture. Other stuff like replacing light bulbs. We haven't actually had a light bulb burst or like stuff that needs replacing in that way. Oh, for my water heater, for example, the whole thing popped out, dude. Like, what the frick? I don't know why or how. And so I just told my landlord about it. She's really good in that way. Like, all these small things, I think any other landlord would be like, fix it yourself. But she still fixed it for me and she was still like really nice about it. How did COVID affect your ability to pay rent? Ooh. Good question. Ever since COVID started, my income has dropped. And usually like I do project it to increase. But COVID has really like turned it on its feet. I would say that I'm actually earning 30 to 80% less than I did pre-COVID, which is really sad. But you guys, it hasn't affected my ability to pay rent at all. You know why? Because I got savings. I think it's very important to start out once you're renting with at least 6 months of rent in your bank account. You never know when there is a global pandemic and all of your jobs suddenly get cancelled, or if you get laid off unceremoniously, like you just don't know what the future holds. And for your own peace of mind, for your own sanity, for your own stability in general, I think it's very important to have that kind of financial stability before you do something that is so financially taxing. So those are all of the random questions. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Right now, we're going to move on to a guest segment. We're hanging out with Mavis, my boo. So let's go. Here is Mavis back again. If you guys don't know, this is the love of my life. So a lot of people have actually asked specifically how it's like to live with me and also how it's like to live together as a couple. For context, a lot of you guys sort of know our situation. We did move in together for circuit breaker. If you're not from Singapore, we just had like a soft lockdown where no one was like allowed to meet other people, even your boo. We decided since we hang out together like more than half of the week, ever since we started dating in October, we might as well just like live together. And after that, we realized that we need our own space. So once circuit breaker lifted, we went back to our own like normal spaces lor. So Mavis is back with her family, and you spend about 3 to 4 days at my place, like staying over and stuff over the week. So it's kind of like half for now.
We had the opportunity to stay together. Like that's something that some people didn't have. So they had to like long distance, right? So I mean, like if we had an option, then like why would you want a long distance? Especially because we didn't know when it was gonna end, right?
And especially when I live alone. Spill the tea. What are my worst habits? What are the weirdest things that I do?
Not a lot of bad stuff, honestly. Like it's kind of nice living with you.
Thank you.
I do like living with you.
I do cook you a lot of food.
Yeah, and she's great at cooking. She's a culinary goddess. So like sometimes when we eat and it's great food, and I was like, culinary goddess.
Also, Mavis is also a really good cook, and we kind of talked about it over dinner last night, like how nice it is for both of us to cook so that we can take turns or we can cook together. It's just really nice though that both of us like appreciate food and we also know how to like cook our different dishes and stuff. Yeah. What else? I'm just fishing for compliments at this point.
She walks around the house. Is this something that I can even say though?
Say it's okay.
She walks around the house naked a lot of the time. And you say naked.
I like to be in my own skin. She does. Say.
It's just a nice little surprise sometimes.
So this is why I like staying alone. This is what I was saying, you know, about having like everything just be what you want exactly. It's so liberating. If I want to strut around my own house naked, why not? You know what I mean? Like it's just a really nice like free feeling. And sometimes like I don't know if any of y'all like experience this also, but always your mom, your aunties, whatever, they're like, oh, when the men in the house like you have to wear a bra, blah blah. I'm like, just don't fucking sexualize my nips. And a lot of times I also feel like it's a bit improper or like I'm inviting stares. Like as a kid, I've already gotten like that kind of harassment from male neighbors and stuff. So as an adult like human, especially with who I am, right, and being like more public and stuff, I don't want to be like swinging around like my braless tits like at anyone, you know. So it's very nice to be in your own house, being able to do that with your own partner, knowing that like you've seen my body. I would say you're a fan of it.
I am a fan of it.
So it's chill. It's like a really nice feeling. And if you do get naked, I'm like, ooh, you know, it's just like a nice like, I don't know, I feel like ever since I've lived on my own, like I just embrace my body more and I'm not so like ashamed of it. I feel like more grown. I feel like a grown woman.
Yeah. And I'm also sensing like there's a lot of like freedom in like expression of like being your own home. Like you never have to minimize yourself for other people.
Exactly. I don't have to be policed. It's crazy, like now that I think about it, the amount of times I come out of my room and my mom is like, huh, you're wearing that? Even if it's like a t-shirt and FBT. So she's like, you know, people know you now, like you want to dress a bit nicer. I'm like, no, like not at all. And then my dad would be like, yeah, let her dress how she wants. But then if I'm dressed in something a bit skimpier, he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, you guys, I can't win.
I mean, I don't get police on what I wear, I think, because most of my clothes are just very boring, right?
You're very proper.
Thank you. But I think like when I'm at home, I get policed a lot about like what I'm eating,
right?
When I'm doing my stuff, like, oh my god, are you gonna do that now? Like, it's already 3 a.m. Like, oh my god, just let me live my life. I'm a night owl, so I do like doing my things at night most of the time. But then everyone in my house has a problem with that, even when I'm being quiet. So because I sleep late, right? I also wake up late. Then you're like, oh my god, now then you wake up.
So another thing that I really enjoy about living together and choosing to live with someone, I think it's a little different with like a roommate situation. So I've done that before, where you sort of like have to split the chores the same way you split rent, but it's different for me in my house. I do like that Mavis like chips in and helps with like the chores, so you do the laundry a lot of the times. If I cook, you clean. If you cook, I clean, that kind of thing. And it's just been really nice to be so mindful about like how you split the work and like what you're doing for each other. I think there's a lot of opportunities to show your love language, you know, to be like, hey, I'm doing something for you. And you know, sometimes when you come over and you bring me little snacks, or you bring me like pandan chiffon cake, and I love it, and it's just like, it's so nice, you know.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm not here, you don't eat as often as you should, right? And I think part of it is that, you know, if you're alone and then you have to cook and clean for yourself, it's like much worse. Yeah.
100%. I eat a lot of instant noodles when no one is watching, because first of all, I love noodles, I love soup, and honestly a lot of the instant noodles like out there in the market now taste amazing. So it's like, you know, and I'm always working, and so sometimes like if I want to finish something, or let's say if I'm filming, like you see this and you're like, oh, it's 20 minutes. No babe, it's like a few hours in the making already. So sometimes like I don't want to interrupt it with food. Even just now we were like, do you want to get dinner first before filming this for the second time, or should we just power through this and then eat later? I just end up accidentally skipping meals sometimes. Like I don't do it on purpose, but I realized because you are quite particular about eating your food, and when you're hungry you let me know, and if you want supper you will eat supper. The supper will be eaten. Sometimes very unhealthy lah. It's like curry Maggi mee with like 2 eggs plus like 3 hot dogs, you know, that kind of thing. So it's kind of nice to have like
a balance. I think like for a lot of us Singaporeans, the idea is that we will one day move out of our family homes and then like start a life on our own, right? That's why people like propose with a BTO and everything.
Yeah.
I think that's like the ideal situation. Not saying that you don't love your family, but you know, it's a different kind of living together with someone that you learn to compromise, and sometimes it's not possible at home.
It's a conscious decision and something that you're making like out of love. You're going to start a new life, a new like family together with your partner, right?
Of course, when we are living together with someone, like there are habits that we both have that we have to learn to work with each other, right?
100%.
Maybe it wasn't so much the habits, but for me, I always feel like a guest in your home. So when we were staying together in circuit breaker, like it was hard to sort of settle myself into this space. So I was always like neither here nor there, like not really enjoying my time here, because like this is not my space, because she has a particular way of doing things that like sometimes it's not very nice of me to like kind of try to change that.
Some people have also asked if we like split the rent during that time. We didn't do that because this is my home. Like when I invite someone to come and live with me, like I'm not suddenly relinquishing half of my house. Do you know what I mean? Like it's unfair for me to ask. Also considering how it is like now, Mavis literally just graduated. She couldn't even have her graduation ceremony like at this time, right? And she's still looking for a job. So I don't think it's fair for me to have made the decision like nearly 2 years ago to live on my own and then suddenly put like half of the rent on you. That's just not fair. What is fair is that we split groceries, we split like some of of the supplies like detergent or like mouthwash that we use like a lot of times like together. So that makes sense, because in that way I'm not like paying for everything that you have like while you're here, and at the same time you're not paying for more than what you need to pay for.
Because like those are consumables, right?
Exactly.
So those are things that I will use when I'm here. So things like toilet paper, food, that kind of thing are things that I will use. So obviously I have to pay for it.
Right.
If you had asked me to pay half of the rent, like how are you going to separate this space into half for me? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because her house is completely filled, and I have stuff of my own if I had to move in, right? But I don't think any of that could fit. So our current situation right now is I'll just carry like a day pack of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll just come over. Yeah.
Like I said, like how I go back to visit my parents, when she comes here, she just wants to spend time with me, and we can get some work done when I need to get work done. I can't just like not do work for half of the week, so we try to get our own like work done in between, but at the same time, like this is my space and there isn't an allocated space for Mavis. So I would say like when you are thinking about moving in with your partner, a lot of times like someone will move into someone else's house, but I always feel like even when you start splitting rent, then there's always gonna be like a this was my house first kind of thing, and you are moving and encroaching into my space. So I think what would make sense better for both of us, seeing as this place really isn't that conducive for like desktop like work. We don't even have like a work table here. I just use the counter that I used to eat on also, and it's just a little bit cramped, and I do have a lot of things. I think what would make sense is if we were to work together to eventually rent or buy a place that has maybe like at least 2 bedrooms, and then you can have your own personal room, I can have my own personal room, and then we can have like a communal like bedroom and then like a living space also. I think that would make a lot more sense, because I think it's very important to establish like safe spaces and boundaries when you just don't want to have interaction with each other. It's nothing personal, you know. It's a lot of time it's just like I need to be on my own, or I need to focus.
One of the reasons why we fought so much at that point of time during circuit breaker is because we didn't establish like our personal space. And for now, the current situation, when I come over, we share the same workspace and we are like this close to each other. So it's kind of problematic because like we don't have the sufficient space to get the things that we need to do done. And we get distracted by each other, right? So one of the things that I actually heard about when way back then when I attended this seminar is for queer people to come together and then like to try to find a space where they can rent, and for like queer tenants to like offer their space to be rented. One of the panelists, they talked about how important it was for them as a couple to establish like what is okay and what is not when you're living together, because like you just move into a space together, and what you need to do when you first move in is to establish safe spaces. Like, okay, if you all argue, what is okay? Is walking out okay? And you don't like it when I walk out, right?
I really don't.
Yeah, but that was not established. If I need my personal space, like where is it? How do I turn off and switch out? When is it acceptable for me to do so? Like, it's a lot about like sitting down and establishing those boundaries, but we didn't get to do it because I'm a guest in this space. Yeah, so I think it would have been better if like we were living in another space together, where we have
equal ownership of the
we
space.
have decided that okay, this is this, that is that, and we're gonna work out this way.
Yeah. And it's not just a case of establishing like what not to do or what to do when you are angry. It's also like what gets you angry. Okay, I'll give you an example. So I play music and I watch videos, and just my life is like online and I consume a lot of media, right? Sometimes like in the day when it's already like 2 p.m, you're not really woken up yet, but I'm already playing videos, I'm playing music, and I'm sort of getting my day, then you'll be kind of angry because it's noisy, but I'm like, it's 2 p.m, you know what I mean? So there are certain like boundaries that I think we have to work out, like what's acceptable, what's not. So let's say if I know that she's really really tired and I'm playing like extra loud music, obviously I have to tone it down. That will be my fault, you know. But these are things that I never actually considered because I was so used to living on my own. So these are things that you have to relearn, and you have to be able to adapt and be able to say I'm sorry when you do make a mistake, because everyone makes mistakes. It's kind of cool that you're talking about like the Proud app and like queer tenants and the idea of renting, especially for queer folk, because as you guys may know, gay marriage is not legal in Singapore.
Let's just say that gay marriage is very far in the future for us. And one of the key things that I think upsets me the most is that it's hard for me to get my own space. Like, if you guys like straight people are watching, like when you think about getting a house together, right, you can talk about BTO, and that's like a very sad path for you because you
Yeah.
know exactly how much grants you're going to get, how much you have to pay, how much you have to work in order to get there.
How long you have to wait.
Yeah, and for us, it's a bit different. Like for now, for example, right, if let's say I want to buy a house on my own when I'm 35, that's a 9-year wait. 9 years of potentially living with my family.
Especially when you already feel like you're grown and we've had a taste of living by ourselves already. If I were to go back and live with my family, I wouldn't be able to do it. I really wouldn't. First of all, my things wouldn't even fit. Second of all, the idea of being demoted almost, like from an adult to being a teenager. Parents, they can never see their kids as adults. I feel there will always be a sense of, this is my child, I need to protect them. And then when it's convenient for them, they're like, oh, you're still a kid. When it's convenient for them, hey, you're an adult, you gotta pay for your own stuff. So there's always this like weird dichotomy where you feel like you're forced to be grown at some points and then forced to sort of be treated as a kid or like a teenager at some points. Yeah. And I feel like, especially when you talk about like being in a relationship, I am someone that supports the idea of cohabiting before you marry each other, because there are a lot of things that you really don't know about someone until you live with them 24/7. And I think that a lot of like fights and disagreements can be always worked out like before you get there. And if your differences cannot be like resolved, for example, if you really just feel like, oh my gosh, this person is so dirty, oh my gosh, this person is so neurotic, you just like cannot live with this person, then that's something else that you have to consider as well. It doesn't mean that you can't be in a relationship. It just maybe means that like living together, having a family, you know, marriage isn't like right now something that you want to look forward to, you know, especially if you guys are already fighting. Yeah, there's this like old age-old saying where people always say, why would you purchase the cow if you can already get the milk? Like implying that if you're already cohabiting together, if you're sleeping together, why would someone want to get married with you? If your partner doesn't want to get married to you because the sex is already had, then that is their problem. You know what I mean? This is a problem like much bigger than whether you want to cohabit together or not. And for us, I think because we're a queer couple, since the BTO options like opting for public housing, getting grants and subsidies isn't an option, we are suddenly put into a more difficult position of having to save a lot more, getting a lot more loans, not having anything recognized in name, not being able to combine our finances. Yeah, so it's definitely like a bigger burn in our wallet. It's gonna take us longer to get there, and in the meantime, of course, that's why we think about like renting and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, like, if a queer couple, like, they're both not high earners, like, it's even more, like, hopeless in the future,
Yeah.
right? I can't imagine, like, working and, like, earning very little and having to think about when you'll ever be able to afford a house.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I also can't imagine like being 30 and living with like your longtime partner in a room in a HDB. I mean, obviously some people like have to go through that, that's their reality, but I can't imagine doing that for myself. Like it's, I mean, okay, first of all, because I do this lah, but also because like all the good things I said about living alone, all the freedom, the liberation, the mindfulness, just like the peace of mind knowing that no one is gonna kacau you for no reason, that's all gone. You know, you don't feel completely safe, you don't feel completely comfortable in a house that's not yours when you're sharing it. When the landlord's in the house, when there are other tenants in the house, it just feels different. It's not quite yours, and you're constantly reminded of that.
Yeah. And I think in Singapore, because like, we don't have the culture of moving out before like you actually get married, why people say that renting is a financially irresponsible decision is because they say that, okay, if your family has a house for you and then like you have a room for yourself, you could have saved that money for this, for that. You could save it for when you actually get to buy a house instead of renting it. Because when you rent it, like, you're giving money to a landlord, right? Yeah. So what do you have to say about that?
Other people also ask me like, hey, don't you think that you're being a bit dumb? Like, there's some people that really go out there and say that, and they're like, well, you spend like on rental, right? 2 years already, in my case, amounts to a down payment for a 3-room like HDB. If I were to double that, I could have gotten a studio in a condo. So it doesn't make sense for me, especially to be so young, to move out, because moving back in is a lot more difficult than moving out, and then I sort of have to maintain it, and I also delay my timeline in terms of how much I can save to afford to buy an apartment. And they're partially right. It does sort of delay how much I can save if you're talking about being a salaried employee, like if I were to earn the same amount of money all the time. But having this space, gives me the opportunity to work more efficiently for longer hours at my own leisure, to be more creative, and to be able to accept like other collaborations and campaigns that I couldn't before. Obviously, as my stats grow and everything, I'm able to charge more and I'm able to make more videos, and this is full-time as compared to how I was like part-time. I wouldn't be as motivated as I currently am to earn a lot to keep this space, to have my dog. I don't know if I would have Noodles, you guys.
Yeah.
My son?
Oh, he's sleeping here.
Oh, he's so cute. And also to work even harder to get out of a rental to be able to buy an apartment eventually. Obviously, I realize that renting is not an ideal situation long term because you're putting a lot of money into a space that isn't truly yours. But at the same time, like, how much is my sanity worth? How much is my productivity worth? I have to constantly ask that. Like when I first moved in, right, I would like lie on this very bed and just think and be like, oh my god, this place is mine. And that to me is a peace of mind that I feel like no matter how much money I would be earning, I would still put it towards that. Like this is money worth spending for me. Yeah.
But that's obviously like as a non-salary employee, you're a freelancer and your own boss, right?
Yes.
So like from a perspective of like a salary employee, I'm not working right now, so I have like zero income, but like I know that I will be working as an employee because I am the kind of person who works as an employee. Like, I'm just not very like entrepreneurial mindset kind of person.
It's okay. Not every like people. Some people do actually like having a stable fixed income every month and having like a job scope. You know.
Yeah, and that's what I like. I think so. Definitely, I'm going into that. Our salary doesn't expand, right? So it will always be fixed salary, and then you're looking at your salary. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take 1/3 of that. I'm always left with 2/3 every month because I'm renting. Whereas like for her, if she works harder, she could expand that salary and be like, okay, I'm spending this much on rent, but then I can earn more because I get to work hard in my own space. So it's slightly different. And honestly, I'm not the kind to take risk, right? So it's hard for me to say that, okay, I'm going to rent my own space if like I wasn't dating you. Yeah, I think that I'm a very safe kind of person. But at the same time, I think recently I've realized that the fact that you can work in your own space and like this is your space, but the mental sanity that you get of being alone and not being with your family, it's quite worthless. Sorry. Sorry. It's quite priceless.
It's not just like having to stay with your family. Like obviously I love my family, but sometimes family drives you nuts. Sometimes you just want to be able to be in your own space.
And also just a feeling of independence or feeling like you're being an adult.
Accomplished.
Can you imagine like you're trying to be an adult and then your parents keep trying to like treat you as a child? I think that affects a lot of people mentally because they're like, oh, I'm a child. You know what I mean?
I find that we don't have to grow up the same way and move away like a lot of people in the States or in like Western countries do. I feel like when I was staying in New York, a lot of my friends, like all of their personalities for their age had already blossomed in a way that was more mature and complex than a lot of, I feel, my Singaporean friends of the same age do lah, because we're constantly being policed and like being supervised by our parents. So I just feel like we're constantly kept at like a certain level. We're not really allowed to speak our minds. We're not really allowed to do whatever we want, and in some ways that's for good, but in a lot of ways like it's just a feeling of like suppression. I feel
you feel just very restricted.
It's just a matter of like self-expression, you know.
When you moved out, because you're not fixed salary, right? But then for rental places, like usually they want your income to be at least like 3 times the amount of the rent. So how do you manage that, and like how much savings do you have before you were like, okay, I'm ready to move out?
So my rent, I know a lot of you are like constantly being like, why is she so secretive about it? Just say lah. Okay, it's around $2,000, okay? Just take it, here you go. I didn't intend to move out so early. I was giving myself a timeline of another year and a half. But when I found this place, it was such a good deal and it was really everything that I wanted, and I really couldn't wait to start my life. So I said okay, and in my bank account I had enough for 6 months of rent if I didn't do anything at all. This doesn't obviously include like living expenses, but in my head it was like I need to have at least half a year's rent in my bank account ready to go if I need to do anything, if I need to stop work. So that was the kind of prep that I had for myself. I would say if you have less than like 3 months, don't even think about it. it's a very, very risky move. Why do something that you know you might not be able to afford? You know what I mean? It just puts you in debt, a lot of stress. It's not worth moving out on your own. You move out on your own, but then you're stressing about so many other things. And if you do have money around, like find a way to invest, you know, to grow your money, to have multiple streams, to stabilize your income at least before looking at like renting. But you can still window shop, why not? You know? Yeah.
Actually, I want to ask something for like some of my friends. Like,
Alright.
I know a few people who like live in abusive households and they really, really want to get out.
Okay.
So sometimes I see their tweets, I'm a bit sad lah, because I'm just like, you know, you don't have to be like in this situation. Like, you could consider moving out, but of course, money is always an issue, right?
Yep.
I don't know, what advice would you have?
Obviously, in cases of abuse, like it's much more dire, it's much more urgent. You want to get out as quick as possible. If you're still schooling, I would say apply to all of the dorms that you can and just ask for housing. If you feel comfortable, you can share. If you're not, you can just say like, for personal reasons, I need to urgently find accommodation in school, because school accommodation is usually the most affordable and it's also where you need to be lah. So that makes sense. If you're a working individual, even if you're not in an abusive situation, if you don't have quite enough to rent a whole space by yourself, but you do desperately want to move out, I would say tell it to everyone that you know. Just pitch it to people, be like, hey, I want to move out, yeah, but like, I cannot afford, so I kind of want to get a room. Like, anyone wants to share, like, you know, anyone who's like interested in sharing like a 2-bedroom apartment, 3-bedroom. I know a couple of friends who each rent a room in like a penthouse. So it's definitely doable, more realistic in terms of like budget constraints, and you never know who else is thinking of moving out as well, who else is in a situation where they want to be, you know, in a shared space with friends more than family. If someone else hears about something, hey, this person wants to rent, or hey, this person, you know, has a room to let, then they will let you know.
But probably don't tell your family. Yeah.
Oh, but don't tell your family.
Don't tell your family.
Why? Unless you are moving out the very next day kind of thing, especially in an like abusive place, like just do everything hush hush on your own first. Yeah.
And even if not about like a 2-bedroom or whatever, for some people I know that like their living situation, like it would still be a step up if they rented a room. Yeah.
100%.
100%. But get the bread first, get the money first, try to get a job, save up as much as you can.
There are also rentals available for like master bedrooms or like just common rooms in HDBs and condos, even landed property. And these are usually like somewhere in the hundreds. The cheapest, I think, is like 400. It can go all the way up to like 1,000, 1,002 for like a nice master bedroom in someone else's condo on landed property. You can always take the time to sift through and look at what your budget allows you to choose, I guess, and always make sure that you have at least 3 months rent. That is the baseline. So now we're moving on to random questions that you guys have asked us. So the first one, neighbours. How important is it to meet your neighbours, especially when you live alone? How to break the ice?
My family, like, we have never been like, not to say on good terms, like we don't really care about neighbours at all, and our neighbours don't care about us. So I've never had like the feeling that I needed to reach out to my neighbours. But I do know that my elder sister now, even though we come from the same household, right, she's more invested in speaking to the neighbours, being friends with the neighbours. But like even for me, I treat dorm as a space where I go back to rest. So for me, I am an introvert. I don't like to spend more time interacting socially than more than I need.
So when I was in the dorm, obviously I was like, hey, how you doing? Cool. See you later in the dining hall kind of situation. But when you move out alone, especially to a place where, you know, it's free for all, like it's very different. You can't just assume because like maybe you had good neighbors growing up, you know, your parents had like made friends with the other parents in the neighborhood or like, you know, next door kind of thing, and everything is like peaches and gravy, that you think you can do the same. Especially when you're a woman living alone, it's a lot more different. I think for me, moving into this particular apartment, it's taught me a lot about like neighborliness, which is that it's really not that necessary. So when I first moved here, I was very excited and I wanted to like make friends with everyone, but the first few people that I saw were very unfriendly towards me. So I just like, okay lah. I did finally speak to the person like right next door to me, and turns out he like was very uncomfortable talking about his partner that was living with him. Like I've seen them together, they're a couple. And he refuses to like acknowledge her, and he kept hitting on me and kept asking me to go back to his place. And I was like, I'm right next door. Like, why would you think about cheating on your partner when I'm right next door. Like, it's so weird. And he just made me feel like really uncomfortable. Till now, it's been like a year and a half. He still like likes to open the door when I open the door, like when he hears me open the door.
He keeps trying to make opportunities to meet you.
Yeah, it's really strange. Especially when I have seen them together now, made it clear that I've seen them, and I've like stopped being even like smiley or like friendly to him. And then, shall we talk about CBU? Story time. So this is a story about someone we call CBU, aka Creepy Basement Uncle. So he was staying in the basement with his 2 kids, his wife and his mom and the helper. He was here for close to 6 months, 8 months.
Yeah.
Oh, it felt like forever. First, when he moved in, he was already like really strange because my friend was parking in the car park, and then like they had stopped right in front of the car to stare at the car. So then after that, this guy, picture a very underweight, like scrawny, maybe mid-40s man. His hairline starts from here.
Remember, we're doing a podcast, so you actually have to describe it.
Way past your ear, actually. A little bit past that, you know. It's just like a classic U shape lah, okay? He's around my height and I'm 157. You know how most people blink and, you know, their eyes are not like bulging? His eyes were like really... If he could like take them out and plant them on me, I think he would. So he was just staring at me really intensely and asking me like, you're a resident here too? Wow, okay, you local lah. Oh, what do you do? Just like non-stop, like, I was like, sorry, am I at a job interview? Like, I was friendly for like the first couple of questions, but I realized like, he started asking about my age, which unit exactly I lived in, and I was like, okay, why do you need to know all these things? It's kind of creepy. I think women just have like a sixth sense. Like, when a man is staring at you for sexual reasons, like, you can immediately tell.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put a caveat in so that we are not... It doesn't sound like we're making fun of his eyes. Because like, normally when he looks at other people, his eyes are right in their sockets, okay? So this is only when he's staring at women.
Yeah. He will crane his neck in, like every facet of his body will be like leaning towards me. And so after he asked me all of these questions, I was still kind of polite, but I was kind of like, And the thing is, I like kids, so I kind of said hi to his kids, but his kids are a little weird. So the younger boy is a bit more boisterous, very noisy, would ram his like scooter into things, that kind of like kid, like just not very well disciplined. The girl is slightly older. She doesn't speak. She doesn't say, she doesn't emote, she doesn't have emotions on her face. She likes to hide behind things or like just stand slightly behind and stare. And she will stare for 10 minutes at a time. She won't move. It just gave off like a really weird vibe. So after that incident, I was a little bit like, like, who is that? Okay.
Overly friendly old man, like trying to hit on her.
Yeah, and it was in a very clear, like, let me get to know you kind of way, not like in a nice, neighborly, friendly way. Dude, I've met like nice uncles in my time. I know that this is not a nice uncle situation. He would, in the common area, he would be either in a singlet or shirtless, ironing his clothes. Why? It was right where the entrance and the exit was, so if I left and I come back in, like, he's sort of there, and he will sort of like make eyes with me and smile, and I just felt very like creeped out by him. And then eventually, when Mavis did come over to stay with me, when he did notice Mavis, I think he was a little taken aback, and then he started getting mean, like straight up mean.
Yep.
Do you want to take it from here?
Okay, so I smoke, and then in this apartment building, there is a designated smoking area. Something that family likes to do that other people don't is that they like to hang out in the common area a lot. One day when I was smoking at the designated area, he and his daughter was playing badminton in the common area. It's quite a distance away, I would say. And then suddenly he dragged his daughter out, and he said very loudly, "I don't want to smell the smoke," like 3 times. Like, I was like, "I don't want to smell the smoke," and then like he dragged her all the way out. But then he proceeded to say very loudly, even though he was outside already, he said, "That's not a man, that's a woman dressed as a man."
So
very
uncalled
rude.
for.
Yeah.
And the first week that they moved in here, the lift broke down like 2 or 3 times. And my first like entire year of living here, it only broke down like once. So like, yeah, it was just horrible. I don't know why. They're just like really inconsiderate. They're very boisterous. And I didn't like the fact that like he was sort of making me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So like I said, there was like a gym sort of area, but I felt like I couldn't use the space anymore because I felt like he would be there.
Yeah. You have to tell them about the badminton thing.
Okay, so one day I kind of went down and they were there playing badminton again. And the thing is, they're blocking the main entrance. I have to sort of weave around them to get to the door, right? And they didn't stop. First of all, in an enclosed corridor space, who would be playing badminton? Second of all, why would you not stop when there's someone else that's wanting to like walk through you? You know what I mean? I think I was collecting like my mail or something, so I was coming back up and the girl, she was still playing and she whacked me with the badminton racket, like palm, right? And then I was like so shocked because I don't know, like I don't feel like kids have like willfully tried to like hit me before.
Yeah.
And I just like stared at her and I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. And obviously, I don't know about you, but maybe I was raised right. If I had hit someone on accident, no matter who it was, if it was someone that I knew that my parents didn't like or whatever, I would still be like, oh my god, sorry.
Yeah, because it's your fault that you like, you know.
Yeah, because you know that you clearly like hit someone with the badminton racket. So instead of like doing anything, right, she stared at me and then she stared at her dad and he was like, good.
Still makes me angry thinking about it.
I couldn't believe it. I genuinely couldn't believe it. And this is a man whose car has like Love Jesus, has like cell group meetings in this like small little common area all the time. Like he's clearly a very like Christian man, and I don't want to bring religion into this. He could have been any other religion, but I feel like maybe that's a reason why he was homophobic towards Mavis, and I've never honestly been a target of homophobia until then, so I didn't realize that I would be sort of attacked for it. But I guess because by extension like I'm her partner, that maybe he felt like, oh, this bitch is this gay, she's unavailable. So instead of hitting on me, he decided to be as mean to me as possible. It's just very hypocritical. And
No,
just
I just
like,
expect better from them.
you're preaching about something that you think is virtue and you're basing your homophobia off of being like, oh, I'm doing what's right. I'm just assuming lah, you know, we've never had that conversation, me and CBU. But like to encourage your daughter to hit someone because they're different from you, that's crazy to me. I didn't even process it fully because I kind of walked away already. And I was just like, did he just say good? And then for the rest of the few months, like, he would just swing lor between being overly creepy. Sometimes he would smile at me, which I was like, why? We're like sworn enemies already. And just like trying to encroach on our space. He was like on our level for a while. We suspected that he also dropped some like used tissues on like our lift lobby area just to like fuck with us. It's just like the most ridiculous things a 40, 50-year-old man can do.
But you know, like, what's the worst thing is that it kind of really like messes with your vibe every time you come home, because I think like before all these weird neighbors, right, when you would feel safe is when you walk past the gate. And then now it's like you're only safe in here. Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't know why, he's always lurking. So it's just like a sense of dread every time I have to like leave my house. And even if I want to like pass through that place really quickly, like sometimes he's in his car, sometimes he's like coming out, sometimes he's just hanging out doing nothing in a common area.
Yeah,
and I'm
it's
just like
unnecessary stress. It's like the moment you are trying to go out, then like, fuck, what if he's downstairs? Like, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
So,
then like when I go down to smoke, then I'm just like, fuck, he's here.
and he's always doing something shady, something weird. He's never been normal. Yeah, so anyway, he finally moved out. The day he decided to move out, like, he actually tried being nice to me and he called me by name because he saw some of my like mail, like my packages, and I was like, no, dude, no. That was like a really shitty incident of me, like, you know, trying to respond nicely to someone, you know. The other time I tried to respond nicely, tried to hit on me when his wife is like right next door.
If those are the options, right, and there's that much risk involved, I'm just like, I'm not gonna talk to my neighbors. You just mind your own business, I'll mind my own business.
Exactly.
Let's just not talk.
Yeah. I think there's a common responsibility in not actively dirtying like common areas, but I also don't think it's compulsory to make friends with all of your neighbors because you don't know who you're living next to. You know, for your own safety, especially when you live alone, I just don't think it's necessary. I found that the perfect neighbors, my favorite neighbors, are people that have kept to themselves for like the better half of the first year. Remember Isabella?
Yeah.
She was like so chill and like we didn't speak to each other at all until I was like, you know, I like your glasses. And then the other one that I like is the Korean guy that always minds his own business. He is very quiet. He just does his own thing.
Yeah.
He's like a very chill kind of guy.
Yeah, and Noodles likes him.
Yeah, Noodles really, really likes him. A lot of you guys have also actually asked about how it was like living in dorms, like living on campus, like in university. And both of us have that experience. But we realized while we're trying to answer that question, we went on like a tangent and it was nearly like 40 minutes. And it's very juicy and we want to like talk more about it. So we're kind of thinking maybe we want to do like a separate episode. If you guys are interested, let us know. Has living alone increased your productivity or laziness? I would say because I work from home, because I am a freelancer, because I'm highly motivated and I love my job, it's actually increased my productivity to the point that I don't know when to stop. Yeah, I am a workaholic, but I feel like because my work is very fulfilling, I get to relish in the end product being something that's completely mine. Like, I feel my productivity increases a lot. Also because that's why I wanted to move out. If not for my job, if not for the work that I wanted to do, I would have still been home. Yeah, I think like a lot of times, a lot of people assume that because there's no one keeping you in check, that you would just let yourself go and you would do this and do that. And I found that even when it comes to fitness, just a general productivity of life, how creative I want to be, the many different ways in which I choose to relax, I've been a lot more productive. I cook a lot more, I work out a lot more. And just like the general idea of having everything set to my own schedule, it's actually increased my productivity by quite a lot. Yeah. What was something you didn't expect until you shifted out on your own?
I didn't expect how much I would like it. We've been talking a lot about independence and stuff, right? And I think that living alone has really brought me out of my shell a lot. Yeah, I'm the younger sibling. My parents always treat me as a child. Even now, even though I have savings and like I have worked before already, my mom keeps giving me money for food. And then she asks me if like, I want food, she'll buy for me, that kind of thing. Even small things like that made me a very shy and introverted and like not know how to do my own shit kind of kid. I just moved out like because I wanted to stay in the dorm, right? And then I didn't realize how much I would like it. Something that kind of makes you regress into your own shell when someone thinks that you can't do something and then you go back to your own default state. But I think that living alone has really brought me out of that shell and made me realize that, okay, I'm capable of so many more things. Nice. And like being able to do my own laundry, like, it's so fun.
I don't know what's your fascination with laundry. I'm glad you like it because I hate it.
Yeah. Laundry and things like that have always been held above my head. Like, don't you do your laundry for you? Like, in the way that, you know, like a punishment. Like, then you have to do your own laundry. But once I learned how to do my own laundry, that has like held zero power over me. I'm just like, okay, you want me to do my own laundry? Okay, I'll do my own laundry. And then my mom will get upset because her laundry is kind of like her love language. So like she gets a bit upset after a while. It's like, oh my god, cannot do a laundry. Then she will sneakily do my laundry anyway. Then suddenly it goes back to the same arrangement of her doing my laundry for me because she just likes to show her love that way.
Yeah.
You know, like how when you're young, sometimes like your parents will threaten you like, you don't shut up, I'll give you chili padi. But once you eat chili padi and you know that you like chili padi, it's like just doesn't hold any power over you anymore.
Yeah.
And it's small things like that that really made me love living alone so much.
Now that you brought up laundry, I actually also want to point out this fact. I really enjoy cleaning. I really enjoy doing my chores when I have the time for it, like when I set aside time. Because first of all, it's your own mess. You know how it's like when you fart, you smell it, you're like, but but when it's someone else's fart, you're like, oh my god.
Abort. Run.
So when I clean, usually it's not that dirty because I sort of clean along the way, like small chores. And when I do a deep clean, it's very satisfying because I'm the first person to experience it when it's that clean.
I guess it's more disgusting when someone else is using it as well, right?
Exactly. Something else that I didn't expect, now that you kind of brought it up, is actually, for me, right, I have to plan my meals a lot more carefully. I'm just one person. And if I buy, let's say, like a lot of different groceries, right, they go bad really quickly if I don't use them up. So like I've had a couple of instances where like my broccoli has like been rotting in the fridge for like a couple of like days past, you know, what it's supposed to be eaten. Carrots have gone like flaccid. Like it's just been a really sad time. And this is something that I never experienced at home. Because like with my brothers and stuff, oh my god, if I ever bought like those hot dogs, what's the one that I like?
Johnsonville.
Yes! Johnsonville! The garlic breads. Dude, the moment I bring one packet home, I think there's like 5 or 6, it will be gone in like one sitting because everyone wants one. And the thing is now it's like, after a week later, it's still there. It's like, I'll just put in one more for myself. But I also have to think about like fresh veggies, my fresh fruits. I can't do what my mom does and buy like 5 apples for $2.50 because like I only get to eat like 1 or 2 apples.
Yeah.
So that's something that I didn't actually expect. And I'm also usually like overexcited because grocery shopping is one of my favorite activities on this earth. I genuinely enjoy it so much. So sometimes I get a little carried away, especially when I first started buying things. I would buy things like based off of what I feel like eating and not really like based on what I would realistically cook. That's something that I definitely did not expect. Have we ever experienced anything supernatural? How to deal with anything hantu? The first few months that I was staying here, I did see like shadows in the corner of my eyes, but also because like if you've seen my walls, you know it's kind of like stripes and kind of like diagonal, so there is a lot of like pattern and your eyes can sort of play tricks on you. And I think like on certain nights where I do feel a little I'll just be like, this is my house, you know what I mean? Like I'm a good person, there's really nothing to fear. So I just like sort of let it go and it hasn't really bothered me.
I mean, like, we're not experts on anything, but I feel like sometimes like mischievous spirits can be reasoned with. Yeah, there are like tons of like ghost stories out there. I have a few on my own. Did I ever tell you them?
I think you told me a couple, but we would love to share them like in another episode.
Yeah, tip that I have is like regarding sleep paralysis, right? Because that's when most of like your supernatural things come out. So I have sleep paralysis like in the past. It was more often. In my sleep paralysis dream, I would see my room, right? And then something like creepy is like creeping around. And then when I wake up, my eyes see the exact same view as I did when I was sleeping. So that one was very scary because it's like, oh my god, it was in my room. Right? So then after a while, I realized like I had this hack to get rid of like this whole sleep paralysis thing. I just use my black colored t-shirt and cover my eyes when I go to sleep. If I'm sleeping in the day, like the light doesn't bother me. And at the same time, if I can't see shit, then I can't see the demon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, by sleep paralysis demon. And ever since I started doing this like cover, I think I have not had a dream like that since.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love like watching supernatural stuff. I love like hearing about stories, but I've never personally encountered anything. Maybe I'm just like too loud and too like vibrant for like spirits to want to be like, yo, what's up?
Yeah. I have, but it wasn't related to me. I was just like kind of like a bystander.
Okay.
Yeah, did I tell you the bartending one?
Oh, yeah.
That one was weird.
Oh, that one was super weird.
Yeah.
The thing is, I love these stories. I'm like, oh, it's interesting. Like, what is it? I mean, okay, not like I'm asking.
Take it back.
Redacted. With that, we have come to the end of the first episode of Growing Pains. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I don't know exactly like how podcasting works. There will be a couple of kinks that we'll be working hard to iron out. So if there's some like overlapping conversation, if it's a little bit choppy, please bear with us. We'll try to improve like as much as we can. If you want to be here, if you want your questions to be featured for the next few episodes, do also follow my Instagram right here. If you're on the podcast, you would be like, where? Feel free to follow me on Instagram at wordweed. I'll be posting on my stories, asking y'all for submissions, for questions, and we'll try to incorporate them, even if we're not like actively addressing these questions, into the episode themselves. So thank you so much, Mavis, aka my BB, for joining us on this episode.
No problem.
Honestly, let's be real here, Mavis is gonna be like the most constant guest on this show. So you can feel free to ask us anything as well. We're kind of open books right here. Thank you for tuning in and hanging out. This has been Growing Pains. I'm Brenda Tan, your host and producer. And our co-producer is Chua Wei Tzi. Okay, see you guys next week. If you enjoyed this video, that means you'll enjoy the podcast as well, so feel free to stick around. I'll be posting the video versions of these podcasts like on the channel every 2 weeks, so subscribe, turn on the bell to receive your notifications, and I'll see you guys next time with a regular video, probably. Don't forget to subscribe to Growing Pains. Bye!
Was that in the frame?
Oh yeah, this is very 2012 Tumblr pic.